Mark Davis, you've said that personal data is the new oil of the internet and the new currency of the digital world. What does this mean?
Well, actually, that was Meglena Kuneva who said that, who's a European consumer commissioner. But what it means, and a lot of us have been saying these things for a while, is that if you think of, we were talking before about how the internet works, that it's an economics of attention, of human attention. The records of human attention, of what people are doing or might want to do or buy, are contained in personal data. This is data related in some way to an identifiable person or persons. What makes data personal is that it connects to a person. Now, the value of commercial intent drives Google, Microsoft, and Yahoo, both existing and predicted future commercial intent. And the ability to understand that intent is driven by the signals that we give off, the searches that we do, the purchases that we make, the friends that we have and communicate, the messages that we pass between each other, the photos we create, all of it. The economics of the internet are such that we use a small number of signals right now to divine that. But it is still the core economic driver. But if personal data is the currency of the information age, the question I've been asking over the last year, since before joining Microsoft, is where are the banks? Where are the exchanges? Where are all the instruments of moving economic value? How do those exist for data? So there are real inefficiencies right now in the way that the internet economy works. Because if you think of regulatory pressure, which is well-meaning around privacy, saying we want to protect people from harm, regulators are rightly trying to protect people from harm. But they're doing it by reducing the retention, the amount of time you can store personal data, and reducing the amount of PII, personally identifiable information, that makes data personal. But as a user, I want to have access to my information. All the data that I create, I want to benefit from my information. So what we've been thinking through is how would it be that personal data could not just be a subject of privacy, but a subject of property, like personal property, stuff that I can gain value from and gain benefit from. So over the last year, I've been working with the World Economic Forum on a project called Rethinking Personal Data. And the goal there is to reimagine the personal data ecosystem in one in which people, users, have control over the data created by and about them, where they can bank that information like we bank our money, where we can build an ecosystem for application developers and monetization that provides services to individuals, and where that data can be traded in an exchange like a stock exchange, where we can benefit from our information. And it solves a bunch of problems. So one of the challenges, as we mentioned, is regulatory pressure around privacy. So the way to solve privacy is to put people clearly in control of the information that they create, so that the information that is theirs, they are willingly and knowingly and with transparency making it available to other parties to gain benefit from, benefit that they can participate in. The other advantage this has is that if the internet is centered around me and my data, and imagine that I'm the web server, right? My personal data ecosystem starts with me, is that I am the only party that can unify my web searches, my purchases, my location logs, my communication logs, my health records, my financial data, all of it. So in a personal data ecosystem that works better, what becomes possible is the unification of data in a new way that creates new value, new insight. New insight for myself, new insight for commercial entities to communicate with me. And so the efficiencies of this marketplace and the efficiencies of a digital society and digital economy are greater when we actually take the step to put people in control of their information. Let me give you an example. So we've been thinking about what's the political economy of the web. So we look out in the world and we realize we have, in the West, we have democratic societies that have used capitalist and other methods to sort of raise both societal and economic value to make the world we live in now. You say, well, it's 2010. What's the political economy of the web? It looks like 1010. It looks like the feudal period. In a sense, we live in a world of digital feudalism. I don't really own my name or my body. I don't really have property or a domicile. I don't really have freedom of movement or expression. Largely the labor that I create, the data, the oil that I produce, the value that I create, mostly accrues to the lords of the manor. And the problem with feudalism, it had a good ride, but it was replaced by a more efficient system. And the great revolution that occurred, of course, was in the Enlightenment. Not the Northern California Enlightenment, though that's a good one, but the sense of enlightenment in the 18th century, in Europe and the United States, which really changed the notion of the rights of the individual. The idea of human rights, property rights, which created a notion of a civil society made up of individuals who come together with social contracts to form that society, and free markets, where people can participate as economic and social actors together. It's really the foundation of Western European and American democratic societies and economies. And you look at the web and you see, wow, we don't live in a digital Enlightenment age. We live in a digital feudal age. So the work we're doing with the World Economic Forum is to say, what would be the infrastructures, social, technical, political, economic, legal, to actually create the infrastructure for people to have an identity that works globally, that they're in control of, to have the data that is created by and about them to be under their control, and to allow a better functioning society and economy to work globally in that web of the world we talked about. See, if we don't solve these problems around identity and personal data, not only will the economics of the internet suffer, but we won't be able to have the kind of world that we ultimately want to live in. And that's what's at stake here. This isn't just a Silicon Valley question. This is a question for the world about what it means to be a person, to have data, and to live our lives in the web of the world.